Another round. So I want to reiterate what Gary said. Thank you so much, Denny. We had another musician scheduled, and then life happened, and then we didn't have a musician scheduled. And instead of talking and then dead silence, which would make for a very short and not a very rich service, we have this beautiful music. So I thank you. I am grateful to you, Denny. He stepped up last minute. It's just amazing. Is everyone grateful to him for doing that? Okay. So this is November. This is the month of Thanksgiving. So today and next week, we're going to be focusing on Thanksgiving. We're going to be focusing on gratefulness, gratitude, appreciation. And so it was a wonderful lead-in, how grateful I am to Denny. But I also appreciate Denny. I appreciate the person he is. I appreciate the Christ light that shines through him so beautifully. And I appreciate him whether or not he would have stepped up today to do the music. I'm grateful for something he is doing for us that blesses us so much, but I appreciate him just because he is. Are you catching but they weave together. It gets sloppy, messy. If you try to cleanly separate out appreciation and gratitude, you're not going to get to do it. But you can get the sense of it, the feel of it. So basically, that's the talk. We can move on to the... Well, that's the heart of the talk. Tis the season, it's a great practice, and we want to both appreciate and be grateful. And today we'll actually focus more on appreciation. Last week, I told a story about an experience that I had. At this point, it's probably going on 15, 16 years ago. But it's as fresh as if it were just an hour or two ago. It still has an impact for me. And it was an experience that I had while I was walking on the beach at sunset. And at that time, for about a week or two, I had two lines from a hymn that I heard at church, repeating in my head and just repeating and repeating. Have you ever had some music or song looping? That's what it was. But instead of being irritating, which is usually what happens after, the words and the song seemed to go deeper and deeper within me, and I felt more and more strongly the truth of the words. And the line that was looping was, and I want to be a blessing in your eyes. Before that, the words go, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O God. I want to be a blessing in your eyes. And it was that last line, I want to be a blessing in your eyes, for over a week, right? But I could feel it in my heart. I so wanted to be a blessing in the eyes of God. I mean, I could feel it in my body. My heart was opening to that longing. I wanted that so badly. And that aligned with the way I was brought up to think about God. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was brought up to strive to be good, to repent my sins, to do penance for my wrongs, and to become better and better and better as a person. And so without thinking it through, I was imagining myself getting better and better until I finally could be a blessing in the eyes of God. So I'm walking with my dog, because I'm always walking with my dog, right? It was a beautiful husky at that time. She could care less about this magnificent sunset that was going on. And she yanks me the other direction, and I look up, and the clouds were reflecting the sunset. And that was even more beautiful than this amazing sunset. And when I got turned around and I saw these clouds and the colors and the light, I gasped. I actually said, "Oh my God. Oh my God." And I'm looking at this, and I hear a voice which to me felt, and still to this day feels, like it was God speaking to me. And the voice said, "And I want to be a blessing in your eyes." Oh my God. That changes everything. I mean, it changes everything. Instead of striving to be better, instead of working on myself to make myself worthy of being a blessing in the eyes of God, my path, my spiritual journey must now be a path of seeing God as a blessing. It's different, isn't it? And it makes sense, because if you think of a parent, or if you are a parent, if you think back when your child or your children were little and they're trying to learn how to walk and they stumble, you don't say, "Oh, you stupid kid, someday you'll grow up and you'll be worthy to be a blessing in my eyes." That child is a blessing no matter how many times the child falls, no matter how many things it knocks over from the coffee table. Just because we are learning and growing and becoming more adept and more capable doesn't make us any less of a blessing in the eyes of God. We are created in the image and likeness of God, or in unity speak, we are expressions of the very life of God. How could we not be a blessing in the eyes of God, right? Just like that little child. But the other piece, our ability to see God as a blessing, now that can take some work. We know that God is everywhere and in all things, and in all circumstances that we find ourselves in, God is there. And we go about our business. Most of the time, a sunset like that could be going on, and we'd miss it because we're thinking of our appointments the next day, and I shouldn't have said such and such to so-and-so, and how dare he look at me like that, and what did she mean when she said that? That's not like her. I don't think she should be talking. And meanwhile, this beautiful sunset could be going on right in front of our eyes. God could be doing a light show or a sound show, and we could be wrapped up in stuff and not be present for it, and not see what a blessing the thousands of expressions of God are in our lives. And I want to be a blessing in your eyes. So that's the guidance for our spiritual path. Instead of trying to make ourselves worthy, which we already are, that we take a path of seeing the blessings in all the many ways that God manifests, that God shows up. That means we need to be more present, more aware, more open, more willing to see through our spiritual eyes. And in many ways, what that means is that we are being called upon to live in a state of appreciation, a consciousness of appreciation. It means seeing Denny as the Christ light and appreciating him whether or not he does the music. It's seeing each other as an expression of the Christ light, regardless of what activity we may be involved in. And when we do that, everything's different. Think of a moment when you were appreciating someone or something, whether it was beautiful landscape, maybe a puppy, maybe a grandchild, a friend, When you were consciously awake and appreciating this expression of God, how does that feel? Isn't that different? Our hearts are open. The world is filled with light. And you know what? We automatically pay it forward, because when we are in that consciousness of appreciation, it shows. That energy flows from us, and other people begin appreciating us. And when they're in a consciousness of appreciation, it just grows and multiplies. And then we have a community or a family or a circle of people in this consciousness of appreciation. And all of a sudden, God becomes a blessing in our eyes, right? So Google says appreciation is enjoying, valuing, prizing, cherishing, and there were more words, but that many fit. So when we cherish that which is before us, we are seeing God as a blessing. When we are valuing the experience we are going through, we are seeing God as a blessing. There's a man named Louis Schwartzberg, who is a professional photographer. He was based in San Francisco. He was from that area, and then when he graduated from college, he moved to the Mendocino coast. I think he said he lived in Elk. And he has spent the last 30 years doing time-lapse photography. And he talks about the appreciation that we cultivate when we stop and really look, when we slow down time and see what is actually in process. So I'm going to let him talk to you, and there's some of his photography in this video. Caution though, the actual photography is 10 times more beautiful than our projectors managed to. So whatever you see, know it's at least 10 times more beautiful. So I'm going to let him talk.
I didn't have much money, but I had time and a sense of wonder. So I started shooting time-lapse photography. It would take me a month to shoot a 4-minute roll of film, because that's all I could afford. I've been shooting time-lapse flowers continuously, non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over 30 years. And to see them move is a dance I'll never get tired of. Their beauty immerses us with color, taste, touch. It also provides a third of the food we eat. Beauty and seduction is nature's tools for survival, because we protect what we fall in love with. It opens our hearts and makes us realize we are a part of nature and we're not separate from it. When we see ourselves in nature, it also connects us to every one of us, because it's clear that it's all connected in one. When people see my images, a lot of times they'll say, "Oh my God." Have you ever wondered what that meant? The O means it caught your attention. It makes you present, makes you mindful. The my means it connects with something deep inside your soul. It creates a gateway for your inner voice to rise up and be heard. And God is that personal journey we all want to be on, to be inspired. to feel like we're connected to a universe that celebrates life. Did you know that 80% of the information we receive comes through our eyes? And if you compare light energy to musical scales, it would only be one octave that the naked eye could see, which is right in the middle. And aren't we grateful for our brains that can, take this electrical impulse that comes from light energy to create images in order for us to explore our world? And aren't we grateful that we have hearts that can feel these vibrations in order for us to allow ourselves to feel the pleasure and the beauty of nature? Nature's beauty is a gift that cultivates appreciation and gratitude.
So Louis talks to us about seeing that beauty, or if you will, that presence of God in the grand scenes we have in nature, the mountains, the oceans, or in those tiny little parts of the flower and the bees and the droplet of water. What is ours to do is to develop a practice of pausing long enough to see this exquisite beauty that is God. And so we might develop a practice promising ourselves that once each day we will consciously see the beauty that is God. We will see God as a blessing. Or if we're super ambitious, what about 3 times a day? 3 moments. Maybe spend a full 3 to 6 minutes basking in the blessing that is the presence of God. Or maybe if someone's super determined and super courageous, what about an hour a day? We're really being called upon to be awake. The Buddhists teach us to awaken, to be awake and to be present. Because when we are, we see it, we get it, and we are filled with that appreciation that changes everything. It changes everything. Louis said that when people see his pictures, they say, "Oh my God." This beach is in Pacifica. When I first saw it, and actually when I second saw it and third saw it, I caught myself silently saying, "Oh my God." And he broke it down. I want to repeat it because I loved what he said about this. Thanks, John. It's not moving. The O is the moment when we pause. It is the moment that we awaken, that we put our attention on that particular expression of God. He says the O means that whatever it is has caught your attention. It makes you present. It makes you mindful. My refers to the fact that this beauty, this expression, this blessing that is God connects to something deep in your soul. It's not just an abstract happening. It is yours. This experience connects to the deepest truth that lives within you. And then, of course, God. Well, he said that God is that personal journey we all want to be on. Isn't that a beautiful way of describing God? So, what I heard was God saying, "And I want to be a blessing in your eyes," which to me means many, many moments of, "Oh my God," each and every day when I realize God's presence right here, right now. The thing is, though, sometimes we're looking at something or moving through something or experiencing something, and in that moment it's not feeling very beautiful. You know, other things happen. Dogs run away, right? Families have difficulties. Sometimes we lose a loved one. Sometimes we lose a job and our apparent source is collapsing, right? So we go through all kinds of things, and even in those circumstances, there is God. And I'm not saying that the pain that comes up is necessarily God. That's a stretch for a lot of people. But I don't know about you, when I am facing a difficult situation, I would much rather move through it conscious of the presence of God, conscious of the courage and the strength that I can draw from the presence of God, conscious of the wisdom that can guide me through this, the wisdom that it is the infinite understanding that is God. So even in those moments, we can see that there is an amazing blessing that is God in our lives. Rabbi Kushner, who has written a number of books, but the first one that I was aware of that made me aware of him was Why Do Bad Things Happen, or When Bad Things Happen to Good People. He lost his little son and then really struggled to regain his faith. And as he did that, he wrote this book, and it's a fabulous, fabulous book. But what he has to say about this, about seeing God as a blessing in all things, he says, can you see the holiness in the things that you take for granted? A paved road or a washing machine? I mean, do we walk into our laundry rooms and go, oh wow, what a blessing? When's the last time you did that? Or when's the last time you pulled out onto the road and you, oh wow, oh my God, this is paved. How amazing. And why not? I lived through a hurricane in the Virgin Islands. Actually, I lived through two. They were back to back, but the first hurricane we spent in a shelter, but that hurricane knocked out all communications on the island. It was a bad one. There was no radio, there were no phones, there were no TV, nothing, no communication system. So when that first hurricane ended, we had no idea a second one was on its heels. So we left the shelter, went back to our homes, and we were cleaning up because it wasn't pretty. And maybe 4 or 5 hours into that, another storm starts. And it was bad. It was instantly bad. And it was like, oh my gosh. So we go to the car, we pull out of the driveway, and the road had collapsed. There was a 25 to 35 foot gully where there had been once a paved road. And that direction was the only way out on this particular island. Going the other way was just a dead end. I appreciated paved roads in that moment like I never had before. If you pulled out and there was a gully of 35 feet at the end of the driveway, all of us would appreciate paved roads, right? And that's the thing. Sometimes we don't own this appreciation until we lose that which we had been taking for granted. And all of these are expressions of the power of God. They're expressions of the intelligence that is God working through people. How many times in the last week have you appreciated electric lights when you flip the switch? Okay. Okay, and that's because we've had power outages, right? Maybe that's the blessing in power outages, right? When's the last time you appreciated water, clean water, when you turn the spigot? There are people on this earth that have never experienced that and might never. And yet, it is an amazing blessing. It is God expressing through the ingenuity of man, right? Dennis Merritt Jones wrote a book on abundance that we used in our Joyous Abundance class a little earlier this year. He said something similar. He said, when we begin to look beyond our obvious blessings, between the cracks and crevices of our daily lives, we begin to see with new eyes, eyes that can perceive an infinite grace. And Dennis is the one with the short hair, in case you were wondering. So this is a picture that I took. Again, I was walking my dog. It's Point Isabel Regional Shoreline. And again, the projectors don't do justice. The picture is much more beautiful in reality. But I took that picture. It was an oh my God moment for me. And I've showed it to people since, and they go, oh, yuck, that's a mud field. In the beginning, the pattern part, it was mud and little puddles of water, and each little puddle reflected the sunset so beautifully. And I was in an oh my God moment. Or you could see it as a mud puddle that the crazy lady took a picture of, right? Again, the choice of, we choose to see God as a blessing in our lives. One of my favorite excerpts from a poem, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. When we are consciously choosing to see God as a blessing, that's what we're doing. William Blake knew that his was to see God as a blessing. Right? And then this is a young teenager. He's a student at Los Altos High, and he gave a TED Talk, and in that talk he said, appreciation comes with an unstoppable ripple effect. So God really gave good direction to see God as a blessing, and as we do that, we are blessed, and we bless everyone around us, because there is a ripple effect. When you move through your day in a consciousness of seeing blessings, in a consciousness of appreciation, you change the world that you live in. Namaste.